a perfect video for the theme for the next 2 weeks called drifting. I wish you could read that. I know the lettering is pretty small in that one video back there. You might not be able to see it. And you should thank me, first of all, because as I studied for this message and looked at my notes yesterday morning, I realized, I have about an hour and a half of things to say here. But I don't think they'd like that if I just went a full hour and a half. So I took the message and I broke it in two and just sort of put another ending on this morning's message and we're going to finish this message on drifting. It's supposed to be 1 week. We're going to make it a 2-week mini-series because we're going to be in Hebrews chapter 2, 1 through 4. The passage here is just pregnant with meaning and application that I would love to bring out a little bit more thoroughly than just running through it and making it as practical as we can. Now, I asked this question last week. Who here remembers the music group The Drifters? Some of you. If you Google them or you go on YouTube, you can see all their songs. Now, they're a little bit of a tragic story. They started in the 1950s, and they had numerous different hits. This Magic Moment. You ever heard that song, This Magic Moment? They had, White Christmas. They did a version of White Christmas. Save the Last Dance for Me. There Goes My Baby. There Goes My Baby. I don't think they're talking about a stroller either. and There Goes My Baby. And the Drifters. Now, what you might not know about the Drifters is the Drifters music group was consistently drifting. In other words, the group that started the Drifters, they were owned by this syndicate, and they got their syndicated group that owned different music rights to different music groups, and they were incredibly underpaid to a place almost poverty, and yet they had these hits. We're still singing some of their music to this day. Yet they weren't able to cash in on their popularity. The people who owned them cashed in on their popularity. So they got a little fed up with that. One drifter drifted away. They brought in a new drifter. Another drifter drifted away. And they all started other groups, and they tried to cash in on the notoriety, but it then never worked for any of them because they were known as the Drifters. That was their signature group. And even though the original 5, there's probably 15 of them in the course of their musical history that never really finished the course with that particular group. They were sort of swept away. Probably legitimate reasons. I want to look at that principle of drifting. I use the Drifters as just sort of a fun way to introduce where we want to get at, because I think this is a very serious issue that faces God's children. We get asked a lot in churchianity, about closing the back door of the church. In other words, when folks come in, they like the church, and all of a sudden folks leave, and every pastor of every church in America or around the world has had more people leave their church than join their church, if they've been at it for any length of time. If everyone who joined my church for a period of time was all still here, this wouldn't fit them, that wouldn't fit them. I'd have thousands and thousands and thousands of people in 30 years of preaching that have come and gone that we've had relationship with. So what is the principle? And obviously churches mess up. I've been on the other side of messed up churches. I've been on the other side where pastors have failed and blown the church up. And I've been we've been pretty good at this church. We haven't had, the pastors a little messed up, but we haven't had really great controversy ever rock our church in the last 30 years that I've been here. But I've seen the results of messed up churches and messed up leadership. We all have. I mean, you've probably heard some horror stories yourself. But let me tell you something. We've lost more people, and I'd venture to say this is true for every church. We've lost more people, not to church controversy, not to church splits, not to bad pastors that make mistakes, not to having poor church policy and ministry and assimilation processes of bringing people into the local assembly. We've lost more people, 50-1, because of drifting. They've drifted away. I tell our staff all the time, we can't keep everyone. They won't let us. We lose more people because they drift, not from a church, because we're just a church. We are just a church. We're a place to enhance and help you in your walk with God. We're here to help you get to the next level with Jesus Christ, whatever that means for you. But when you drift, you don't drift away from us. That doesn't mean you can't change churches. You can change churches. You can go to another church. Go to where God speaks to you, where God feeds you, where you feel that you connect them on. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not talking about changing churches. I'm talking about drifting away from a walk with God, from a fervency, a focus, an attentive, a process of transformation. Hebrews chapter 2, verse 1. Therefore, we ought to give more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip. Let's stop there for a moment. Therefore is a very important word when you translate the scriptures. It usually means you're turning over your shoulder, you're looking backwards. You're looking backwards to, therefore, it's referring to everything that was said in chapter 1. Hebrews, this is 2, verse 1. So it's therefore saying, in light of what we've already taught, and in light of what I've already written, Paul is saying, therefore, because of what I told you in chapter 1, which was the introductory chapter in obviously the book of Hebrews, which showed what this. It said Jesus was over the angels. There was a comparison of Jesus being better than the angels. In fact, the key word in Hebrews is the word better. They're comparing Jesus to the angels. They're comparing Jesus to Moses under the law to this Hebrew church. And so they said, and therefore the fact that Jesus was better than the angels, the fact that Jesus was better than Moses, the fact that Jesus was the preeminent Son of God, the incarnation of God himself, who died on the cross. And in light of these things, therefore, we ought to give the more earnest heed to the things that we have heard, lest we should let them slip. Now we go on, for if the word spoken by angels, again referring to the angel controversy, was steadfast, people were confused about the role of angels in this early church. If the word spoken by angels was steadfast, and every transgression and disobedience received a just recompense of reward, how shall we escape, verse 3, if we neglect so great a salvation? Next week, I'm going to talk about seven areas of spiritual neglect. That'll be next week's message, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord and was confirmed unto us by them that heard him. God also bearing them witness, both with signs and wonders, and with divers miracles, and the gifts of the Holy Ghost, according to his own will. So I want to just park in verse 1 for a few moments here. It says, therefore, we ought to give more earnest heed to the things we just heard, lest any time we should let them slip. The word slip is a word paraneuron. It's a nautical word, and that video actually picks it out pretty well, depicts it pretty good as a Greek word picture. It speaks of a ship drifting powerlessly past its port. I'm not much of a boater. I don't like water. I don't like motion like that. Last time I was way far out, I got seasick. Even though I did not get seasick to the point, I did Lamaze methods all the way in until I got back to port. My son was with me. I was white. And he just said, Dad, just throw up. I said, I won't. And so for 3 hours, I gutted it out. Never threw up, not trying to be gross. But I did gut it out all the way there until I got these little landlubber legs on land again. And since then, I've grown a deep appreciation for fishing off docks and sea and things like that. But boats and me don't usually get along that well. My wife just laughs at me. No. Drifting is usually undetectable. Until some point, oftentimes you'll wake up. This happens spiritually. Maybe this has happened to you. You wake up and you're like, wow, what happened to me? How did I end up over here? I was doing this right here, and I'm talking spiritually speaking now. But how all of a sudden, how did I end up over here? What steps did I take or didn't take to allow myself to drift? I've had this conversation with countless Christians. Pastor, I don't know what came over me. I don't know how I had strayed so far. I don't know how these things are now in my life when they weren't in my life for sometimes 10 and 15 years. Now they've reappeared. They've reemerged. Maybe it's a temptation I haven't had or had to battle with for a decade plus. Could it be that there's been some drifting going on? Now, usually it's undetectable. We're at the mercy of the currents. I'm going to define that word current for you in a moment. Years ago, I went scuba diving down in the Keys, and there was some current underneath the water. I was unaware of it. I was just underneath the water, having a blast with looking at the colors, and that were things I was trying to kill underneath the water at that point, and stuff. And when I came up on the surface, I looked, and the boat, which I had dove off of, was about 130 yards away. I thought I was underneath the boat, because I don't like to be far away from the boat, because I don't like water. There's things in the water bigger than me, and I didn't like being too far away from the boat. So I saw something real big, I was getting back in the boat. And because I just smart. But I found that I drifted. The current pulled me 100+ yards away from where I thought I actually was. And I popped my head above the water, and because I couldn't find the boat. I said, where is it up there? And I popped my head up, it's way over there. What happened to me? I drifted. And if this is the thing, I didn't know I was drifting. I wasn't aware I was drifting, so I popped my head up, and I got my perspective back. When I got my perspective back, I realized, wow, I had gone from here to here without feeling it, without realizing it, without even sensing it. What are some of the things that cause us to drift? How does this happen? Well, one of them, I think, is a key. I'm going to spend a little bit of time with this. We'll find it in Ephesians 2:2. And once you walked according to the course of this world, I'll use and translate the word course to currents of this world, the things that pull you along in this world. The word world there, as many of you know, is the word cosmos. It might be ahion, but they have the same significant meaning to it. Following the prince and the power of the air, we know who that is. The spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience. So we once walked, we mannered our life after the course and the currents of this world. The word world, cosmos, we know in Galatians 1:4 is a present evil age. Ahion, evil, infectious evil, an evil that wants to enlist other people into its agenda. We know that the whole world lies in wickedness. 1 John 5:19. Same word, wickedness, same word as evil in Galatians 1:4. That evil that wants to infect other people. We know in John 12:31 that Satan is the prince of this cosmos, the prince of this age. John Calvin had an interesting comment on that verse. He says, outside of Christ, there is nothing but confusion in the cosmos. 2 Corinthians 4:4, Satan is the very, what? God of this cosmos, of this world that we live in, this world that you and I live in. So I think it's very important. I've used these definitions for years. I've never found better ones. I look for better definitions, different definitions, but these are the two best definitions I have ever found for that word cosmos describing it. Now please take note of this. And please look these up, and I'll get you copies. I'll even post them online. I'll post my notes online on Facebook, because these definitions will help remind you and guide you if you use them as a working understanding of this world system in which you live. We're here with the family of God now, but tomorrow you go into work and you're working within the world system. Just like I work within the world system. We are strangers and pilgrims here on earth. This isn't our world. Satan is the god of this world. Now the cosmos is this. The first definition is by R.C. Trench, who did a wonderful original word study many hundred plus years ago. It's all the floating mass, he's defining cosmos. The floating mass of thoughts, opinions, maxims, speculations, hopes, impulses, aims, aspirations, at any time current in this world, which it may be impossible to seize and accurately define, but which constitutes a most real and effective power, being the moral or immoral atmosphere which at every moment of our lives we inhale, again, inevitably to exhale. The cosmos, I got another quote in a moment, understanding this, it's not a personality behind it, but it's programmed by a personality. The cosmos is a system, like Windows or an Apple operating system. It's a system. It's not a person, but whoever programs the system has their handiwork in it. So we know, we already saw, that Satan is the prince of the cosmos, the god of the cosmos. So he puts a world system in place to promote his agenda and to further his cause, which would be to keep people from, obviously, primarily, from the saving understanding of the cross of Jesus Christ, to subdue the church, universal, through subduing Christians, personal. That's how he does it. Sperry Schaefer says this: the cosmos is a vast order or system that Satan has promoted, which conforms to his ideals, aims, and methods. It is civilization now functioning apart from God, a civilization in which none of its promoters really expect God to share, who assign to God no consideration in respect to their projects, nor do they ascribe any causivity to. In other words, he's not the cause for anything. It's all natural, it's all whatever. This system embraces its godless governments, conflicts, armaments, jealousies, its education, culture, and religions of morality and pride. It is the sphere in which men live, you and I. It is what he sees and employs. To the uncounted multitude, it is all they will ever know as long as they live on earth. It is properly styled the satanic system, which phrase in many instances a justified interpretation of the most meaningful word, cosmos. It is literally a cosmic diabolicus, an evil world system. See, the course of this world, the currents of this world are anti-Christian, anti-values, anti-morals, anti-integrity, anti-purity, anti-fervency. That's the course of this world. The course of this world is pro-self-preservation, pro-self-deification, pro-self-pleasure. It won't have to point to the demonic. You won't find in the cosmos road signs saying, oh, the devil's right here. But it'll cause you in its currents to drift you away, to impart its values to you, its mentality to you. Can you see it in the world? Can you see what I'm talking about? All you have to do is watch the news. All you have to do is see what's happened in our school system from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, and see how they've rewritten truth in some cases, to see the impact of the cosmos. as it's drawn so many. See, a drifter has little or no resistance to the subtlety of the world's currents. A drifter will be brought right into the current. Even, I'm talking about Christians, unprofessed Christians, even those who say, yes, I'm a Christian, I believe these certain things, but before you know it, you have a watered-down belief system. Your convictions aren't as strong. Your focus is beginning to wane, and you find yourself consumed with maybe making your way in the cosmos, finding security in the cosmos, finding joy in the cosmos, finding your peace and your identity in the cosmos. Instead of we're the only place you could ever be. Wednesday night, Psalm 16, verse 11, is in your presence is fullness of joy. William Newell, one of my favorite commentators, only wrote 3 commentaries, Romans, Hebrews, and Revelation, said this: drifting is the quietest, easiest, most delightful way of dying. This word slip in Hebrews 2 verse 1 has a word picture of a boat with a slow leak. You ever have one of those? I did growing up. Or I got seasick on a lake. You had a coffee can and a boat. And my brother would row, and I'd just take the coffee can and keep throwing water out of the boat. Had a slow leak. It's not a question of if the boat will sink. It's just a question of when the boat will sink. Pararuin, that's the Greek word. That's what's in pictured here. Humanity are drifters by nature. Satan in his world system are anchor pullers. They up the anchors of our life, oftentimes without even knowing it. Let's move on quickly here. Drifting can be caused, number 2. Actually, I have it at first, but it's actually number 2. A lack of a whole heart. I'm going to go quickly here because I want to get to the solution. A lack of a whole heart. About 9 times in Scriptures, the Scriptures say you make a covenant with the Lord with your whole heart. What I have in view here is the Lordship of Christ. The threshold of spiritual power is the preeminence of Christ in your life. I can't say that clearly enough. I could stop right there. The threshold of spiritual power and spiritual transformation is the Lordship and the preeminence of Jesus Christ in your life. I'm not talking about the doctrine of Lordship salvation. I'm not going there. I'm just talking about transformation. If God's going to take me and make me what He wants to make me, He has to own me. He has to control me. He needs to be the focus of my affections as I am the focus of His affections. We cannot surrender to casual belief. We can't take something great to salvation and make it common. We drift because we have no vision, and without a vision, people perish. We go astray. We have no aim. We have no focus. We stray because we have no kingdom-mindedness. In other words, our life revolves around ourselves and not the largeness of God's kingdom. We're trying to make our home here in time and space. We're trying to put our stakes down here. We're trying to find our security here. This is huge in America. You might not face this problem in a third world if you're a believer, because there is no security. There is no future. There is no retirement. There is no normal. There is no white picket fence Bangladeshian dream. It's survival. It's food. It's making it. Just getting through another day. That's how they live their lives. But in America, we're challenged with being American-minded. It's okay. I love my country. As long as it doesn't take the fact that I want to be kingdom-minded. Trials, grief, spiritual confusion. I'll spend more time on that in the second service, but trials and grief and spiritual confusion are huge, causing people to drift. Things come into your life that you never thought would come into your life. Things happen that you never dreamed would happen. There's loss. There's the loss of relationship. There's loss through death. There's loss of security. And it can cause you to drift. Pressure comes in. Life mounts. Pressure in life, marital pressure, financial pressure, schedule pressure, and all these things happen, and all of a sudden you begin thinking compromise. How can I compromise? How can I make it? And you begin drifting from stated values. 2 Samuel chapter 11, beautiful picture of this. Joab's at war at Ramoth, and David sends his troops out. You guys go fight. He was the king, the best warrior maybe in Israel. You guys go fight. I'm going to go back to the palace and take a nap while you guys are on the front lines. That wasn't how David used to be. David used to lead the troops into battle. And do you know what happened? The rest of the story, he saw Bathsheba, stole another man's wife, had the man killed, and tried to cover his tracks. All in chapter 11 and all in chapter 12. It started with drifting. Taking the nap, was anything wrong with that? No. Was it where he was probably supposed to be? No. So the drifting came first. The sin came second. How do we combat this tendency to drift in our Christian walk? And this is sort of what I was dwelling on yesterday. I'm going to go to Hebrews chapter 12 now, a little further down the book. 3 verses. These verses mean a lot to me personally, especially one. Wherefore, seeing we are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. Those are the folks that have gone on before us. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race, talking about life, that is set before us. Looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despised the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest you be wearied, and faint in your minds. The word wearied is kamno, and it means to become sick and tired, both physically and emotionally. The application of this verse is very powerful. Because what the apostle is saying here, whoever wrote Hebrews, let's say it's Paul, what the apostle is saying here, we are to have the same dogmatic determination against the wiles and the snares of sin. And I define sin as that compelling nature that is a minority party inside of us. Jesus looked at his mission. He looked at human sin, realizing he needed to he was there to redeem men from their sin, and he had this determination. He set his face steadfastly towards Jerusalem. There was shame, and there was pain, and there was people despising him and rejecting him. But he wasn't going to drift. He was going to finish the course because he knew it was God's will. He knew it was God's purpose for him. For consider him that endured such a contradiction of sinners against himself, lest you be wearied. So the apostle's saying, if you don't consider Jesus, use him as your example. If you're not setting him up, propping him in front of you and gazing at him, you are running the risk of wearying and fainting. The word faint is ekluo. I love the word. It's pregnant with picture. It's 6 times in the New Testament, always in the passive voice. It means to relax, to lose tautness. And it's a Greek word picture of an archer with a bow and arrow that had a loose string. Anyone ever shoot a bow before? You realize the strength of the bow is in the tautness of the string. The effectiveness of the bow is how tight that string is. If you loosen the bow, the bow loses its effectiveness. That's what the word faint means. The bowstring is loosened. So he's talking to this church that was wavering. The word minds is suke. It's not the normal word. It's used different places, but it's the breath of life. The vital force which emanates on the body and shows itself in breathing. The seat of feelings, desires, affections, aversions. My translation for the word mind here is probably a better English translation would be soul than mind, even though they can be translated both ways. But my translation is guts. My guts. This person right in there. This person that maybe people don't know but me. Even our spouses aren't aware of everything that's in here. Because it's quiet and it's silent. It's the inner musings, the inner rumblings, the inner debates that go on, the inner struggles, the insecurities and the fears and the faith, where you hunker down and you say, I won't succumb to this. How do we not drift? Simply, my friends, we hold Jesus Christ, and we hold on to Jesus Christ. We hold on to His cross. We hold on to His resurrection. We hold on to His ascension. We hold on to His imminent return. We hold on to this judgment of believers that is coming for all of us. And we hold on to the fact that He's given us an eternal home called heaven, which our name is written in its calendar. Our name is written as a home there. We have an eternal home. We hold on to these things. We set these things before us. Here's Jesus, the author and the finisher of my faith. Here's Jesus, the crucified Savior. Here's Jesus, the resurrected Redeemer. Here's Jesus, the ascended King. And we set Him before our face, and we think on Him, we dwell on Him, we picture Him, we see Him with our soul's eyes. We think of that cross and what it meant. We think of His kingdom and where it must go, and our place in the eternal plan of things. That's how we don't drift. We open up this Bible or iPad with Bibles on it, and we open up this Bible between Sundays. I have a real Bible. I'll open up next service because that doesn't have anywhere near the impact the real Bible does. We open it up between Sundays. We treat the gathering of saints sacredly. Can I say something a little bit hard? If the Bible sits on my shelf Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you're already drifting. You're already way downstream. We need to be in that book. We need to hide it in our hearts. We need to see the big picture. We set Jesus before our face. We set His love, His passions, His missions. And the more that you gaze at Him, the more your heart will ignite. The more you look at who He is and what He did, the deeper your heart is moved. You don't have to worry about drifting if you consume with Christ. If Christ is all your life, you won't drift. If Christ is part of your life, you will drift. Drifting has taken more people out of the kingdom of God than anything else. People further away. You may be able to attach a sin to it. You may be able to attach this to it or that to it. People make incredible decisions against their walks with God sometimes. Do you think that happened all of a sudden? Or do you think there was drifting well before that? People's lives sometimes will just crash because of whatever. You think it's an act that brings that on? Or slow drifting that culminates there? That's why I'm speaking this message this week and next week. Because this is serious. There is something built into us, and we live in this world system that wants to get us downstream. It wants to get us off mark. It's like me with that boat when I was scuba diving. I knew where I had to be, and I knew where safety was. But the currents pulled me away from where I knew I should be. And swimming back can be done. It just seems like a little harder against the currents. Dear Jesus, thank you.